Complicated, overwhelming, confusing. These are all words I've had family and friends use talking about planning a trip to Disneyland recently. And I can totally understand that because the past couple of years, planning a trip to Disneyland has changed dramatically. From getting into the park to how to make the most of your day. This video is my ultimate guide to the Disneyland Resort for 2023. And by the end of this video, instead of feeling overwhelmed and confused, you can get back to being excited for a magical vacation. So let's dive in. To start off this 2023 Disneyland Resort planning guide, let's talk about what new offerings are coming to the Disneyland Resort in 2023, and other changes you can expect to see. In celebration of the Walt Disney Company's 100th anniversary, Disney is planning a number of special offerings, and Disneyland will be the heart of the Disney 100 celebration. Beginning January 27, 2023, Disneyland will have an all-new fireworks spectacular called Wondrous Journeys. Disney says this all-new nighttime spectacular will celebrate 100 years of Walt Disney Animation Studios in an experience that ignites the dreamer in all of us. Wondrous Journeys will feature nods to every film released by this iconic studio over the past century, with music, characters, and special moments from favorite stories including Encanto, Hercules, Princess and the Frog, Peter Pan, Frozen, Treasure Planet, Big Hero 6, Moana, and more. Disney goes on to say, state-of-the-art projection effects will surround you with blank pieces of paper, pencil sketches, and splashes of color as the artistry of animation breathe life into beloved characters from Mickey Mouse and Bambi to Ariel and Mirabelle. And in a thrilling moment of heroism, Baymax soars high above Sleeping Beauty Castle, inspiring us all to fight for our dreams. End quote. Some things to keep in mind about this spectacular. For weekends and more busy times of the year like spring break and throughout the summer, Wondrous Journey includes fireworks. On standard weeknights throughout the year, it will not always include fireworks. It will just be a projection show with lights, music, lasers, etc. You can view this show on Main Street, in front of the castle, at the facade of It's a Small World, and on the banks of the River of America. And depending on the weather or the time of the year, you may or may not get fireworks each night over at Disneyland, but over at California Adventure, most nights you will get a whole new version of World of Color called World of Color 1. Disney says, it takes only a single ripple to make a huge impact. After all, a ripple can generate a wave, and a wave can power an ocean of change. Many Disney and Pixar characters have dared to make waves and change their world for the better. In World of Color 1, their stories take center stage, unfolding amid a breathtaking blend of dancing water and incredible special effects. End quote. Now to get into the World of Color viewing area, you can't just walk up before the show. You must join the virtual queue earlier in the day. This is free, but it has to be done on the Disneyland app. Guests can join the virtual queue each day, 12 p.m. noon, based on availability. But to access the virtual queue, you either have to have entered Disney California Adventure Park with a One Park ticket or Park Hopper ticket, or enter Disneyland Park with a Park Hopper ticket. The other option to get access to the viewing area, if you're already in California Adventure, is to go with one of the World of Color dining packages. The standard World of Color dining package will be in a standing room area, or the World of Color dessert party, which is the only way for most guests to watch the show in a seat. I don't want to spend a lot of time in this video talking about all the specific details of how the dessert parties work, and also how the app works to get this virtual queue, but I break it all down in a video that I'm going to link in the description below. And if there's any changes throughout the year, I'll definitely update that link so you'll have a new video to explain all the details. But definitely make time to see World of Color 1. I always love the standard World of Color and also the Season of Light version, so I'm guessing I will really like this new version too. Also opening January 27th is an all-new attraction back in Mickey's ToonTown, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. A version of this attraction is open at Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World, and it's such a fun ride. I'm very excited for this to come to Disneyland. It uses the same trackless ride system that Rise of the Resistance does, but this attraction is for any age, it's a family attraction, and everyone can enjoy it. When it first opens, if it follows what has happened on the past few new attractions that have opened at Disneyland, you won't be able to just walk up and get in a standby line. We'll have to use a virtual queue, and to do this, there's usually 2 times each day to enter in, either at 7 a.m. if you have a reservation for Disneyland, or at 1 p.m. if you are in the park if you didn't get in that first time at 7 a.m. for the virtual queue. When this attraction is getting ready to open, I'll have a new video with all the details of how the virtual queue or lightning lanes might work for this one, but my gut feeling is it will be a virtual queue, and so just know that you need to be ready at either 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. to try and enter. I know that's a lot of information and we're going fast so far, so definitely subscribe to the channel so when this ride does open, I can share all the details of the specifics Disney provides. And while Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway will be opening, ToonTown has been closed to guests over the past year as they work on updates on the entire land. And while Mickey and Minnie's Runaway will open on January 27th, the rest of the land won't be unveiled until March 8th. So what's coming? Disney says, the reimagined Mickey's Toontown will provide open, grassy play spaces for everyone to unwind, starting with Centennial Park, which will be anchored by 2 new interactive play experiences. A beautiful fountain featuring water tables designed for play that invite guests to have a sensory experience, plus a nearby dreaming tree with sculpted tree roots, providing an opportunity for children to crawl and explore. Other updates will include updates to Goofy's house and his yard. Disney says, dedicated to all things play, Goofy's How to Play yard incorporates a whimsical sound garden where kids will discover new ways to make wacky noises, as well as enjoy an all-new elevated clubhouse. There will also be updates to Donald's Boat, and Gadget's Go Coaster will be renamed to Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Go Coaster. And of course, you'll still be able to meet Mickey and Minnie in their homes and enjoy a spin on Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. So once again, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opens January 27th, and the rest of Toontown will open on March 8th. Something else that will be returning this year is the parade Magic Happens. It will return to Disneyland on February 24th. This parade opened just a couple of weeks before the whole world shut down, and we didn't know if we'd ever see it again. But as part of the Disney 100 celebration, the Disneyland Resort is bringing this parade back, which has a fun mix of both classic and newer characters. Another change that will be coming this year, but as of the making of this video, we don't have an exact date, but Splash Mountain will be closing as the transformation begins for it to become Tiana's Bayou Adventure. This new version of the attraction is scheduled to open in 2024, and Walt Disney World's version of Splash Mountain is having its last day of operation on January 22nd. 2023. Currently, Disneyland hasn't announced when Splash Mountain will close, but several major attractions are down at the start of the year for the first month or two, so some have speculated that Splash Mountain might remain open for just a little bit longer into 2023 as those attractions are down, and once they're back up and the capacity of those attractions return, they'll be able to take Splash Mountain down. But once again, subscribe to the channel and I will keep you posted on the latest news for Splash Mountain and when it will close, and also any updates we have on Tiana's Bayou Adventure. All of that is happening in just the first few months of 2023, and of course later on in the year we have plenty to look forward to, like the Oogie Boogie Bash will be returning, and also the holiday season at the Disneyland Resort. At this time, and Disneyland has not announced anything otherwise, but park reservations are still required to enter the park. If you haven't been to Disneyland in a few years, this is a new requirement, so you can't just walk up with tickets and plan to get into the park. So you definitely need to check the park reservation availability either on the Disneyland website or the Disneyland app. And then once you purchase your tickets, you can select which dates you want to reserve. And you also need to choose which park you'll be going into. If it's a one park, you'll have to choose, of course, between Disneyland or California Adventure. If it's a park hopper, you have to choose which park you'll be starting in. Some have said this will go away in the future. Currently, Disneyland has not said it is, so you just need to plan on this. Otherwise, you will not be getting in the park. This other rule has been in place for the past year or two, but you need to keep this in mind that if you do have a park hopper ticket, you cannot hop to the other park until 1 p.m. So make sure you know where you want to start your day. If you want to have breakfast in a certain location, or if you really want to try for a ride first thing in the morning, make sure you know which park you're entering and have that all figured out beforehand. Now let's talk about some of the time-saving things at Disneyland, but also some things that are going to cost you a little bit more than they did in the past. First, starting out with Disney Genie Plus. What is Disney Genie Plus if you haven't been for a while? It is what kind of replaced Fastpass, but it is a paid option. So no longer are there free Fast Passes that you can get like you used to, where you'd be able to either get a paper Fast Pass, or if you were willing to pay a little bit more for Max Pass to have that on your app. Now, if you want to have that experience where you're able to make reservations for certain attractions, you need to buy Disney Genie Plus. You can choose to buy this for one day of your visit, you can choose to buy it for all days of your visit, but you do have to pay for it individually each day. And the starting price for it is $25 a day, but depending on the time of the year, that price can fluctuate. I'm going to put on the screen here a list of the attractions in Disneyland and also California Adventure that have access to the Lightning Lane, which Disney Genie Plus gives you access to. As you can see, a lot of the big name attractions are on here, so it's definitely helpful to have a reduced wait at a number of these attractions. With Disney Genie Plus, you can make one reservation at a time. Then after 120 minutes, you can make another reservation, or if you've already used your current reservation, you can make another one. Keep in mind that you can stack these later into the day. For example, if you get Space Mountain first thing when you walk into the park, but it's not for several hours like until noon, after 120 minutes, you'll be able to make another reservation, for example, for Haunted Mansion at 11:30. And so then you'll be able to go on Haunted Mansion and Space Mountain within the same hour. You'll notice that two big name attractions aren't included in the Disney Genie Plus list here, and that is because they have what is called the individual Lightning Lane. That means if you want to go on this attraction, you need to pay individually for each person to be able to skip the line. Otherwise, you'll need to wait in the standby line. Those attractions are, over at Disneyland, Star Wars, Rise of the Resistance, and over at California Adventure, Radiator Springs Racers. Those individual Lightning Lane prices can vary from $7 to $18, for example, for Radiator Springs Racers. Keep in mind, you do not need to get Disney Genie Plus to see any of the attractions at Disneyland. You can still get on all the attractions you want to if you're willing to wait in the line. But keep in mind, you will be waiting in longer lines. Sometimes you could be waiting an hour or more for an attraction, when those who have Disney Genie Plus could be waiting 10 minutes. So you have to ask yourself the question, how much is that saved time mean to your family? Depending on your situation and also the size of the group, the thought of paying $25 per person might seem overwhelming. Some things to keep in mind is maybe saving that time is going to be worth it, but maybe that means you're not going to be returning to Disneyland quite as soon. If this is a once every 4 years or 5 years trip, I definitely would highly recommend you using Disney Genie Plus, factoring in those costs, knowing you won't be back a lot. But if you are visiting on a yearly basis, maybe this isn't something you need to invest in. One thing I would encourage you to think about is you do get included all the photos you take on attractions and by the PhotoPass photographers when you get Disney Genie Plus. So it might be worth it for just one member of the party to get that so you can get all those photos that are taken of your group or family during that day. I wish I could say that Disney Genie Plus is a waste and you don't need it at all because the lines won't be long and you'll be able to have a totally great time without it. But let's face it, the lines can get pretty long. So it might be the case that you want to use it maybe one day of your trip. And so maybe plan for which day you think is going to be the busiest, and on that day make sure you purchase it and have a great time with it. Maybe instead of having a 3-day trip, maybe you have a 2-day trip, but you're using Disney Genie Plus so you're getting to hit a lot more attractions and a lot less time in line. Figure out what works for your group, but keep in mind it is going to be a benefit to you, your family, your friends, whoever you're traveling with. If you want to see my experience of a full day of using Disney Genie Plus, I'm going to put a link down in the description, and throughout the year, if there are any updates or changes to the Disney Genie Plus system, I will add a new video link there to give you all the details. Now let's talk a little bit more about making the most of your day, whether or not you buy Disney Genie Plus. If you really want to make the most of your day, you need to have a game plan. So I suggest arriving at least 30 minutes before the park opens. That way you will be waiting in line when they start to let guests into the park, and they let you up to a certain point in the park, and then they do what they call rope drop, where they will literally drop a rope and let everyone walk to that first attraction that they want to see. So it's important for you at that point to know what attraction you do want to see. So for example, if you are over at Disneyland, maybe it's some of the Fantasyland attractions that you want to see the most, or maybe you want to try for Rise of the Resistance, but you got to keep in mind that not everything is always open right when the park opens. Ideally it would be, but sometimes whether the attraction is having a little problem or whether they don't have it ready yet, you just need to be ready to be flexible in your plan. But I suggest heading for some of the attractions that you know are going to be busier later in the day, whether that might be Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, Rise of the Resistance, or over at California Adventure. Definitely if you're at the front of that rope drop group, head for Radiator Springs, or if that seems too busy or they don't have that attraction open, there's other options like Toy Story Midway Mania, Guardians of the Galaxy, Mission Breakout, and Web Slingers over at Avengers Campus. I know this is a ton of information, so if you want to learn a lot more about these tips and tricks to save more time when you're in the parks, I have a video that is basically a masterclass on saving time and money, and I'm going to link it down in the description below. So definitely check that one out because I go through all the different scenarios and how to make the most of your day so you're not just waiting all day in line. Now let's talk about one of my favorite parts of Disney parks. It's the food. So there's a variety of different types of food offered at the Disneyland Resort, and way too often I hear people saying, oh, I don't eat in the parks, it's just like burgers and fries and stuff, and I'm not into that, so I want to save money. No, there are lots of different options, and over the past few years, Disneyland has really become a destination for foodies because they actually have really upped their game on some of the delicious things they offer. So yes, you can still find hot dogs and burgers and fries, but there are also really great options. So I'm just going to lay out the big picture here. So there are table service restaurants, and these are the more classy, more expensive ones, where you're going to be having a server come to your table, take your order. Of course, you're having to pay them a tip, and it's going to be more expensive, but these are the really nice restaurants. So over in Disneyland, a good example of this is Blue Bayou. Over at California Adventure, we have the Carthay Circle Theater restaurant, which is very, very classy. Also over at Disneyland, just a step below the Blue Bayou, but still really fun, is Cafe Orleans. So those are some good options if you want the more classy table service options. Now let's talk about some of the quick service or casual dining options. For these quick service and casual dining options, you are not actually going to have a server coming to you. Instead, you will be waiting in line, ordering your food, and then taking it to your table. Some examples of this over at Disneyland: the Plaza Inn, where you can get a delicious chicken dinner, that's around $20. They also have the French Market, where once again, about $15 to $20 you're getting meals there. Rancho del Zocalo over in Frontierland, which has great Mexican food. And back in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, you'll find Docking Bay 7. So those are some examples of some of the quick service options you can get. They are all very delicious and usually about $15 to $20 per meal. Over at California Adventure, there is options like Flo's V8 Cafe and the Pim Test Kitchen. Once again, about $15 to $20 per meal for these, but very delicious. Of course, throughout the parks you can find outdoor vending locations where you can find hot dogs, churros, all different treats like that. And lastly, if you want to be spending a little bit more money but having an excellent experience, there's 4 character dining locations currently. There is, in Disneyland itself, breakfast with Minnie and friends at the Plaza Inn each morning. Over at Storytellers Cafe at the Grand Californian Hotel, they have Mickey's Tales of Adventure, which is a great buffet breakfast, and they also offer a buffet lunch sometimes that include the characters. And over at Goofy's Kitchen at the Disneyland Hotel, they have both breakfast and dinner with the characters, which is a lot of fun. Also over at the Grand Californian Hotel, on certain days in the Napa Rose, they have a Princess Breakfast Adventure, which is the most expensive of all, but the most personalized and classy experience you'll have when it comes to character dining. Once again, I'm zooming through this information, but if you want a more in-depth look at these different types of restaurants and what they offer, I have a video that's dedicated to all of this where I kind of lay out the prices and the different options they have at these restaurants. But just high level, if you want to know what a perfect day for me looks like when it comes to food at Disneyland, I usually like to start out at the Jolly Holiday Bakery after going on a few attractions, getting a cinnamon roll there or some other kind of pastry there, then have a later lunch at Cafe Orleans, maybe 1 or 2, where I can have the Monte Cristo sandwich, which is so delicious. And then maybe 7:30 p.m. when the dinner crowd has died down a little bit, I like to go to Plaza Inn and get that delicious chicken dinner. So that is just what one day at Disneyland will look like for me if I could only pick out one restaurant for each meal. The last thing I will say is if you want to make sure your day ends on a sweet note, I highly recommend making the time to see those nighttime spectaculars. Whether you are able to see Fantasmic or the fireworks over at Disneyland or World of Color at California Adventure, Walt always referred to the nighttime entertainment as the kiss goodnight, and it really is the perfect way to end your day. So definitely make the time to see those shows. I know it can seem overwhelming at times because of the crowds, or it might seem like you're having to wait a while to see these shows, but they really are worth it. Disneyland does an excellent job. I know that was a ton of information. Hopefully you found it helpful. In the comments below, I would love to hear your tips and tricks for making the most of your Disneyland trip. And if you still have questions about how to make the most of your day, I would love to hear those questions too. So definitely put those down in the comments. And consider subscribing to the channel because my hope is always to make your next Disney adventure a little bit more magical with tips and tricks, food reviews, and news. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see y'all again real soon. Bye.